Hi, welcome to MamaFuel. My name is Anne Ferguson. I am your host, and I'm thrilled to bring you this podcast that was created to fuel every mama's heart, soul, mind, and body, and hopefully spark a dream or two along the way. My mission is to change the way that we mamas treat ourselves and each other so that we feel better, live happier lives, and change the world one happier family at a time. In the MamaFuel podcast, I'm sharing real, raw, and often funny conversations with amazing mamas from around the world to remind you that you're not alone and that you're doing amazingly on this wild journey of being a gorgeous woman shepherding small humans as they make their way on our beautiful planet. You are amazing, and I cannot wait to share this conversation with you. Let's get started. If you've been listening to the podcast for a while, you will have heard me mention a conversation with my friend Lizzy Russinko. Today is the day that I am sharing that conversation, and I am so happy. I just listened to it again in preparation to release it today, and this conversation just fills my heart so much. Lizzy and I became instant friends when we met last summer in 2018 at Camp Good Life Project, and that is one of the biggest gifts that I received from that camp, was meeting Lizzy and some of the other incredible souls who had gathered there. In this week's conversation, what really stuck with me, and we've had this conversation months ago at time of release, so in this early part of the summer of 2019, I'm releasing it mid-October. Yeah, it's mid-October, a little past that. And ever since then, the conversation that Lizzy and I had about how when you meet somebody, you feel like you get to know them. But the reality is that you only ever meet a person at a moment in time, and you never know who that person or what that person may have been or done or lived or experienced in the past, nor do you know, nor do they, where they are going in the future, what their lives will be like, and so on. And the secret to real, true, meaningful, deep connection is curiosity, is finding out all of the things that you don't know and how interesting those things are. I could just go on, but I'm not going to tell you everything about the conversation because I really want you to listen to it. And before I do send you into the delight that is this week's episode of MamaFuel, an invitation, if you are in the Zurich area or in the Geneva area, I am hosting urban retreats for mamas. In the podcast, I talk about mini mama breaks. It's the same thing. They've just had a rebrand. So the urban retreats for mamas are happening in the Zurich area on the 9th and 10th of November, 2019. And I am also hosting one on the 23rd of November right here in Geneva. They are starting to fill up, so I would love for you to join us. It is 4 hours of absolute delight, meditation, yoga, gentleness, laughter, hugs, kindness, sisterhood, all the goodness that Lizzy talks about towards the end of this conversation. I would love for you to join me. All you need to do is go to MamaFuel, MamaFuel.me, and click on events and sign up there. Or you can just go to mamafuel.me/urban retreats. That also works. Can't wait to hear what you think about this episode. So when you're done listening, head into the virtual village, or better yet, come on to Apple Podcasts and leave us a review, me and Lizzy, a review and rating, because that helps get the conversation out to more and more mamas. See you on the other side. Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of MamaFuel, the podcast. This is Anne Ferguson, and I am so delighted this week to be bringing to you a dear friend who, when I met her last summer, I felt an immediate connection to, not just because we're basically the same person in opposites, which remains true physically, but because she just has this incredible light in her eyes. And I later discovered an amazing creative spark and talent that every time I see something she creates, it literally takes my breath away. So I am delighted to share with you and introduce you to the beautiful Lizzy Russinko, and engage in this first conversation that we've had since we met last year at Camp Good Life Project. We haven't managed to work across time zones. You're in California, I'm in Switzerland. And we have lots going on in our lives, and this is the first time we've talked. So I'm super excited that we're doing that at all, and even more so that we get to share it. How fun!
So cool. So cool. And thank goodness for Instagram, right?
Oh, thank goodness for Instagram. Thank goodness.
Whew!
I
It's a
know.
pain,
Okay.
but ooh, it's a gift.
I know it's good and it's awful all at the same time. All right, so let's start at the very beginning.
Okay.
Let's tell us a little bit. I was so going to keep singing there.
I I wouldn't have minded. I might have harmonized with you. I don't know.
Oh, such a missed opportunity. So actually, just before I ask you my first question, for anybody who's not watching on the YouTube channel, and you can link to that, I'll link to that in the show notes. Um, Lizzy and I basically have the same haircut. We basically have the same sparky eyes, and we basically have the same shape. We're just not at the same altitudes. That's pretty much the only difference. And
I'm a little shorter.
Lizzy's dark haired, and I'm fair haired. But otherwise, like, it was so funny when we met. I was like, oh my God, you're me.
Oh, totally. Actually, somebody had said earlier, oh my goodness, you have a twin, but she's like the exact opposite in coloring. And I was like, who is this person? And then I saw you and I was like, oh no, she's like so gorgeous and so graceful.
Oh my
I'm
God.
like, and I was like, well, that is an amazing compliment. Thank you.
Well, thank you. But that's so funny because I saw you and I was like, whoa, hey, gorgeous. Look at her.
That's so
And then I
funny.
started talking to you and I was like, oh my God, you're like my exact negative twin. But
Yeah. Yeah.
anyway, if you're not watching us on YouTube, why aren't you? Go check us out on YouTube. You'll see us live.
You'll see our cute haircuts.
That's right. Our twitty haircuts. We're so twitting it. Okay, so tell us a little bit about what your life looks like right now.
Okay, sure. Well, I'll start with a story. So about 2.5 years ago, my husband and I were hiking in the Rocky Mountains in Colorado for our 5th anniversary. And during this trip, we're both from the East Coast. And during this trip, we were like, oh, we're hikers. We're we're national parks people. And so we're like, wouldn't it be cool to live in this kind of environment? Like, wouldn't it be awesome to be able to hike like this on a more regular basis and just like open ourselves up to something new? And so that day we climbed Hallett Peak. And at the top of the peak, we were like, you know what? Let's just throw it out there. Let's just throw it out there that we would be open to an opportunity to move somewhere else. So now, just to give you some context, at the time, we had just bought our house a couple years back. We had a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old, and both of our families live completely 100% on the East Coast. In fact, we were like the weirdos who lived in Pennsylvania. Everybody else lives in North Jersey. And my brother used to say, when they would visit us, he'd be like, oh, I had to take a plane to get here. It was like 2 hours. Anyway, so just for a little context. And my husband had a job. He loved it. He liked it. It was fine. Back to Hallett Peak, threw it out there and got home. This was in October. Got home and it just sat there. In December, 6 weeks later maybe, my husband started getting recruiting phone calls, literally from all up and down the California coast.
Wow.
And he wasn't job searching. He wasn't like out there at all. Just all of a sudden, calls from California. And we were like, what? Okay, all right, we're listening. And the company he was working for at the time, he wasn't like that thrilled with it in terms of values and how it like aligned with our family's values. And so it turned out that he got contacted by a company, Traditional Medicinals, which aligns with our values as a family and is here in Sonoma County in wine country. And we were like, oh, what a cool opportunity. And so after a tremendous, I said, we'll just go for it and see how it goes. And it turns out he got it. And then it was kind of decision time. And so, one of our family mottos is, really my life motto is to make living itself an art. That is the goal. And even my work is around, living my unscripted life and not that it's an unplanned life, but that it's my plan And I get to make those decisions, and that that there isn't this prescription for how we need to live. And so we said yes, and that was 2 years ago. And now our kids are well, he just turned 5. Conrad just turned 5. Ellie will be 7. And my husband and we live in Sonoma County. So that's what my life looks like right now. But that's how we got here. Other ways that my life looks right now. So I'm primarily a stay-at-home parent to my 2 kids. And we're having a great summer, the 3 of us mostly, and then my husband. All the things that come along with stay-at-home parenting. So
knowing glances exchanged across the millions of miles.
Yes. And this past year, my son just graduated preschool. So he was only in, half day, a few days a week. And my daughter was in half day kindergarten. So in a lot of ways, the summer's not that different. But what else? I have a couple of businesses that I work on. So in my spare time, so that's what life looks like. What else does life look like? Yeah, that's kind of what life looks like right now.
I feel like from the Insta glimpses that I see and the pieces I've hatched together in my imagination, there's also, it seems like a really healthy dose of self-care and self-love. Like you go to the gym and you have practices that are feeding you in ways that many of the mamas listening, including the one you're eyeballing right at the minute, just at the second, is struggling a little bit with the self-care practices and the self-love piece just in the season right now. And I would love to know a little bit more about that, because your kids are almost 5 and almost 7. And so my kids, of course, are the same difference in age.
What is it, 20?
23.
20, yeah, almost exactly.
Yeah, right. See, everybody, we're discovering more of the 20ness. And I remember, being at that point, with the difference that my husband was traveling all the time, and like you, we live in a place that's very far from friends and family, old friends, I should say. We have obviously here,
new friends, totally.
And in a place where, even though we've been here a while, certainly at that time, everything still felt pretty new. Like we'd been here a few years, but the banking system isn't like, things aren't automatic. All the things that you just assume and you take for granted, they're not automatic when you're in a different place. So talk to us a little bit about your self-love practices and your self-care routines, because I drool over them from the pit of my exhaustion sometimes. When I get up in the morning and I take my phone, which I shouldn't do. And I look, and you've had this gorgeous walk with your kids, and I'm like, that, because right now that's not in this season at this minute. That's not how.
Well, so I love that you just said in this season, because yes, currently in this season, talked about me going to the gym. That is a part of my life, but it hasn't. I'm coming to a place where I'm realizing that I can forgive myself for all of the many seasons that I've lived, in particular when it comes to my body and taking care of my body or not taking care of my body. I have been everything from a size 2 to a size 12. I have a range of probably 50 or 60 pounds that I've lived in, not including pregnancy. And I think we meet each other at various points, and we think like, that's who you've always been, right? Is like this moment is, this moment is how you've always been forever.
And I know you.
Yes. And I think I know you. And one thing that is very true about me, my mom was making fun of me the other day. She says I like to reinvent myself every 7 years. which actually is totally natural if you think about it, because literally our body regenerates every 7 years.
Yeah.
And so I'm literally a new human, but in many ways I have done that. And so, I mean, there's so many things we don't know about each other. And I think it's really important when we meet each other, everybody, when I come in contact with somebody, just knowing that I have no clue, no idea. And that's a wonder. Like, it makes perfect sense why I get like accosted in the supermarket by strangers often, because I looked at them and then in 2 minutes later, we're standing there holding hands and they're crying and telling me a story about their life. And my husband is always like, Lizzy, how are you again standing with somebody you've never met before hugging? I don't know. It just happens. It just happens. But I think, people can feel when they're seen.
Yeah.
And there's a quote I love. I have a piece of it. It's being heard is so close to being loved that most people don't even know the difference. Like, can't feel the difference. And I just love that. And I think it's a beautiful thing to practice, is hearing, listening to each other, seeing each other. Invisibility and loneliness are, they're just so destructive, and they just make a person decay, I think. And so, but anyway, to go back to the piece of self-care, what I think is really interesting. So about a year ago, right before you met me, actually a few months before you met me, so when I finished grad school in 2013, I was at my heaviest weight. And I was probably about 50 pounds heavier than I am now. And I finished grad school and I was like, so I did my master's in women's and gender studies. And I had a lot of trouble reconciling my feminism with my desire for a fit, healthy body. And I just didn't know how to reconcile those two things. And so when I graduated grad school, I was like, you know what? It was right around the time when things were shifting and it was no longer skinny. It was like, okay to be strong. I was like, oh, all right, well, I can get on board with that. That I can do. And so I started learning about nutrition and fitness, and I got into lifting. And that was a big transition for me. It was around when I was 21. And so then I spent many years lifting and being very into, fitness. Then I had babies, and I at the time I was like, well, I'm never going to stop going to the gym. Then you have babies and you're like, who the hell wants to spend an hour a day in the gym when I could be hugging my babies? Like, it's not happening. And so I just couldn't do it. And there was a whole host of other reasons, but I just didn't want to anymore. I didn't want to go to the gym. I wanted to be with my kids and my husband. And so, or I didn't have the energy, right? I didn't sleep for a year. After my first was born, literally didn't sleep a full night for a year. And I know that you and our listeners, and then I was pregnant again. Yeah. So, because I got pregnant right around her first birthday. And so, there's just that was a season of, I would walk, or I would try and lift some weights here and there. I would stay active as I could, but it just wasn't a priority. So about a year ago, I weaned my second around 4 years old. And I was like, okay, I just weaned him. And now if something feels different here, there's a different ownership of my body now.
Yes. Totally. It's yours and yours alone.
Yeah. Now it's not nourishing anybody. It's not providing that same kind of comfort. And so I'm not a runner. Okay. So let me just say this. I'm 5'1". I'm on the thicker end, and I am not a person who runs. It just doesn't work for my body. But you can put on sneakers and go out the door and run and come back in 20 minutes and have exercise. How cool is that?
That's pretty awesome.
So I just decided I was going to start running, and I would do like 20 minutes. And my kids would cry. They would stand at the door and cry when I left. And then I would do 25 minutes, and they would still stand at the door, Mommy, no. And then I would do 30 minutes. And so for 6 months or so, that's what I did. Almost every day I would just go out, and it was just so necessary. That literally the movement of my body was like a movement in my brain, was like a movement in my life. It was finally this like moment of me time that I hadn't had in a movement kind of way, in an embodied way. Because I was already doing a lot of creative stuff and all of that, but like a business stuff, but it was like my body. So weather starts to get icky. I'm like, oh, I don't want to run anymore. So I start doing some hot Pilates, some hot yoga. It was destroying my skin because I have rosacea. It was like destroying my skin. And I was like, you know what? I have gotten my family and my kids used to me leaving the house now to exercise. And it was a process, but I've gotten there. You know what? I'm joining a gym again. And so I did. And that was literally February. And so now I've transitioned into lifting again, and I feel so good. I love it. And, but people meet me and they're like, oh, you're so fit. And I'm like, yeah, right now, but to all our different seasons, and forgiving ourselves and forgiving each other for judging ourselves and judging each other for prioritizing different things.
Yeah. And for allowing there to be wobbles in so many ways. I was, I had an appointment today and was talking to this doctor about nutrition. I've gotten really excited about micronutrition and gut health in the last.
Oh, I can't wait to talk to you about that off podcast.
Yeah, definitely. And
I'm in
since January. And so today was this appointment that I'd been waiting for since January to see this micronutritionist doctor who's incredible. And I'd seen a micronutritionist, like she's an MD, and I'd seen a nutritionist, so not a doctor who's specialized in nutrition. Mm-hmm. And was taking all these supplements and was feeling all better. And then in the last, I'd say like 2 months, have really had this like, and lots of projects have been going on, and I've been talking about them, and the energy just isn't there. And it's not the desire that isn't there. The desire's there, but like the fuel in this mama's tank for a lot of stuff just isn't where it needs to be for the dreams that I have and the big ideas that I have to come into existence. And I was sitting in her office, sort of, she was asking me questions, and it got very personal very quickly, obviously, because, you're talking about yourself, and she wants to know what's going on in the family and what's been going on. And I was like, oh, and then there's this, and then this happened, and then this is going on. And then she was like, oh my God. and I sat there and got emotional, which doesn't happen very often. So it felt good, but it was this moment of, it felt like permission to just down tools, like permission to just not be okay, like not be at full throttle in that moment and in this moment until it takes to get back into, whatever throttle feels manageable, but it's not full right now. And that's, I think, as you're talking about physical body, a big part of the conversations that we have here on the podcast is about mental body and heart body and soul body and our soul being, mental well-being, and being able to I guess be wise enough and have enough perspective to know that when you're having an exchange with someone, whatever state they're in. And I was reflecting on this today because I was thinking, oh my goodness, I love being on and holding space, and like you, running retreats and doing all those things. And right now, just today in this moment, that's not available right now. Okay. And then the ego starts going, what does this mean? And, same with body weight. Like, what does this mean that I'm not like this, or I'm used to do this and now I don't? And seasons and moments, right? I was reading about human design, and I am a manifesting generator, which one of the things that it says, I was waiting for you to go, me too. If you don't know yet, look it up. I bet you are.
No, I need to look it up.
One of the things about manifesting generators is that people who are manifesting generators should wait and not make decisions on the spur of the moment, because manifesting generators have very deep deeps and very high highs, and that a decision that is made quickly is made at a point along that along the spectrum, and usually needs time to fall into right alignment. So taking a decision when you're in the deeps of the deep or the highs of the high isn't maybe the best way. And the manifesting generator, the strength of the manifesting generator is manifesting opportunities. So the challenge is to wait for things to come to you. And I was like, okay, all these pieces together, knowing that we all have seasons in our mental wellness, in our physical wellness, in our available energy for outside pursuits, for volunteering, for being on the PTA, or, running a charity, or whatever the thing, helping at the food bank, whatever.
Yeah. And the seasons of the people around us as well, so our partners and our children and our family members, and how much all of their seasons impact our energy, our ability to give to others, or, outside of our immediate sort of circles, right? Yeah. I mean, that all is interconnected.
And I think if you're sensitive, which I would wager most of the mamas listening to us are highly sensitive, like I am, and I know that you are.
Yeah.
That has such a deep impact. And if people in our immediate circles and in our deepest love wells are struggling or having seasons where they're, it's difficult, then I was saying to this doctor today, she said, how do you does it not strike you that maybe it would be normal that you would be tired? Does it not strike you that there's a really good empirically measurable reason that that you feel a bit overwhelmed? There's a lot of stuff that's been going on for a long time. I just sort of sat there and felt a bit and I said, I guess.
It's not my magnesium?
Right? But
I just wanted it to be my magnesium.
But I said, I hear you from the outside looking in and having this perspective.
Yeah.
And also, life needs to keep going. It's not, most of us aren't in the position to be able to just collapse into a puddle on the floor and stay there as long as we need to puddle. It's part of the reality, and feeling all of the feelings is important. And also life has to bills need to be paid, and life has to happen, and kids need to be taken where they need to go. And, life keeps going and carries you along. So it's a question of, just getting on with it, and also how to do that lovingly, and how to grant yourself the permission to have seasons of less. And I'm reading Do Less by Kate Northrup. Have you read it yet? Do Less, Kate Northrup. I'm going to actually listen to it when I'm in Canada. Cool. And she has agreed to be interviewed on the podcast.
Yay, that is so cool. Congratulations.
Thank you. And so we'll be speaking this autumn, and reading her book, Do Less, about how the less you do, the better your business will run, and the better your life will be, and the more fulfilled and joyful and happy and positive you'll feel when you do less. And I'm just like, lady, I don't even know where to start on the do less. And I think that that's a conversation that we need to have, because especially like you, I have 2 businesses. I could have 3. And then there's the business of life, and the business of kids, and friendships, and all the other stuff. And at some stage in there is, where is the gentleness, and where is the love, and where is the tenderness for ourselves? And I feel strongly the need to say to anybody who's listening, and I was talking about this in the MamaFuel Sisterhood, which is my monthly membership community. say monthly, annual, my membership community. Anyway, people join monthly or annually. And if you're curious, you could join in September when I open the doors next. But we were talking on Monday about how instead of beating ourselves for not being the way we think we should be, or being the way, behaving the way, having the things, looking like the way we think other people think we should be. Like, let's follow that for a second. How we think other people think we should be. Like,
Craziness.
It's craziness in a lot of steps.
But we all play it. I mean, like you said earlier, I was just thinking about like the cultural messages we get. It's all about like getting your body back, doing this back. And it's like, no, forward.
Yeah.
Like, I'm 40. I'm not 30. I'm not 20. And guess what? I wouldn't be anywhere else.
Yeah.
I am, right? Like,
yes.
And
So
my
much.
father always told me, life only gets better as you get older. He's like, I was in high school, and he's like, listen to me. If anyone who's peaking now, he's like, don't worry. He's like, you want to peak when you're in your 40s or he's like, just let life continue to go like this.
Yeah.
He's like, it just gets more interesting. You get more confident. It just keeps getting better.
Yeah.
And I think that was important to hear as a young person. That these are not the good old days, that you can continue to grow and evolve and live a beautiful life in this getting older,
Yeah. And I often talk to the mamas that I work with about, there's a lot of languaging around getting back to who you used to be before you were kids, or like, what did you love before you had kids, and what were your favorite places, and what were your things to do before you had kids? And yes, there is gold back there.
Totally.
And also there is so much more gold when you add back there to today and everything that has brought you here. Like, back there is part of what brought you here, but it's not wanting to go back to that body, that way of being, that way of thinking, that level of experience that would negate and remove having your kids and becoming the beautiful person you've become with all of your flaws and dips and leaps in different seasons. And I mean, I'm really conscious to never talk about that back, and I like that idea of forward, because it's so important. Okay, so let's having said that, take a step backward and come into your introduction into motherhood. So you finish grad school, and not long after that, you become a mom, if I'm doing the math right?
No. Oh, no. I finished grad school. Actually, I finished around like 23.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, and then I spent about 7 years not single. I was in some relationships, but not a relationship that led to marriage. And then right after my 30th birthday, I was like, you know what? I'm probably just going to be single. I'm not going to have kids. Like, I wanted to have kids, but I don't know that this is going to work out for me. And then I met my husband.
Of course. Classic.
All right. So we met. The next year we got engaged. The next year we got married. The next year we had our first baby. And so it was just like boom, 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 very quick after my 30th. Yes. What was your question?
Tell us about your entry into the motherhood journey. What was that?
Yes. Okay. So I had a career in higher education before I became a mom. I taught in women's and gender studies, and I was in student affairs in residential life for about 12 years. And I guess really when I started college is when I kind of got into that track. So I knew I wanted to have kids, and I knew I wanted to stay at home because my career didn't really lend itself to being a healthy mom and really a balanced mom. I knew that, I had a lot of overnight things or late night crisis response and weekend events. And I had a supervisor whom I love. He's great. He's great. And one of my greatest friends, but like, there was just no way he was going to be empathetic to a new mom. I had seen the way he behaved with other parents of young children. And I was like, I'm just not doing that. So, but we couldn't afford it. But so as soon as I found out I was pregnant, you know, we looked at our budget and we were like, okay, well, we can do without this. We can do without that. We can do without that. We can do without that, da, 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 and got ourselves down to like bare bones and started saving my income so that when it came time, I would be able to transition and be home with just the one income. And with my master's in women's and gender studies, it was interesting because so many people were like, you want to be a stay-at-home mom? What do you mean? You're like a feminist and like you teach this stuff. And what do you mean you want to be a stay-at-home mom? And I was like, I mean, I think I'm pretty sure that the whole idea is that we get to choose what we want to do. And something my mom always told me was, you actually can't, you can have it all, but you can't have it all at the same time.
Amen. So true.
And so, yes, I can have an amazing career, but if I want to have an amazing, like that part, but I also can't be a stay-at-home mom at the same time.
Yeah.
Right. Like that I have a full-time career in higher education. Like there's only 24 hours in a day.
Yeah.
So if I'm going to go to work for 8, I'm not going to be home. And so there's just trade-offs in these different seasons. And one of my goals was always that by the time my kids were back in school, that I would have a business that I could really jump into. And so I've been laying foundations for the last few years. So I'm excited, you know, as the kids transition into more school, that I can kind of go, you know, balance into now more of the work side. But anyway, okay. So left to be a stay-at-home mom, and my transition into motherhood was really, really rough, like many of us. My first birth was incredibly traumatic. And, you know, it was just a classic story of, you know, I was super fit and I was going to, you know, chiropractor and acupuncture and, you know, learning all I went to Bradley method and studied all the things and, you know, was ready. And I knew my mom had 3 really, really difficult births. My sister had a really difficult birth. Like I knew that I was in for some shit, but you know, you just don't know how bad it's going to be.
Otherwise you wouldn't do it.
Otherwise there's no way you'd do it. So, yeah, it was pretty bad. And then breastfeeding was a disaster, which was just essential to my experience as a mother. And I could not let it go. I grew up, my mom was a LHA League leader, which is like a breastfeeding support group. And I just, like, there was just no way that it wasn't going to work for me. But like, it wasn't. So
and then there was reality, right? Like there's no way this is going to work for me, even though right now it's not working.
Yeah. But I would not accept that. So, I mean, I stayed home for the first 3 months because I'm going to cry. But, yeah, I mean, so we found out like around 8 weeks that she had a severe tongue and lip tie. And now like they're checking for that kind of stuff. But about 7 years ago, they really weren't. And so my mother and I drove from New Jersey to Albany, New York because there was nobody in the area at the time to get it clipped. But by that time, my supply was like nothing. And so I was sitting with this baby on my boob, like all day and night, just like, please let milk come out of my body. And then because I had to transition to supplementing her as well as, so I would nurse her and nothing would come out, but I just would. I mean, you know, a teeny bit, but I wouldn't leave the house because I didn't want people to see me with a bottle.
Because somehow
Yeah.
that felt like failure to you.
Yeah. So anyway, and don't worry, I cry all the time. You're like, you never cry? And I was like, oh my gosh, I cry every single time I go into a doctor's office.
I wish that I cried more often. I really
Oh
do.
my gosh.
It's necessary and healing, but I
Yeah.
think
Oh no, I cry all the time.
it is so important. When Carolina was born and her birth was so traumatic, and anyone who's been listening for more than 5 minutes to this podcast will have heard me talk about it.
Yeah.
And breastfeeding was the one thing that I was like, this is the one, and the languaging around it. This is the one thing I'm going to get right.
Yes.
Which is like, how messed up is that? It's not about right or wrong. Like a fed baby is a happy baby, and yet nothing had gone even close to the ways that I had read and planned and dreamt and prepared for. Like it was so surgical and impersonal and freezing and terrifying, cold in that basement operating room, and contractions for 8 hours lying on my back being monitored, and nurses coming running anytime I went to the toilet because it set the monitor off. Like it was so horrific. The whole thing was so horrific. And then PTSD kicked in, and all I wanted was to be able to feed my baby. And I remember sitting up in the hospital with I kept asking them for more pillows because maybe it was that I wasn't holding her properly, and maybe it was this, maybe it was that. And my milk just didn't come through because she came out through my stomach. Like my body just didn't even know that there was no baby left in there for days and days and days. And we had to supplement as well. And I remember having a similar feeling of like, please, let just this one thing, just this one thing happen. Please. And eventually she didn't have the severe tongue and lip tie. And I mean, she literally was showered. Like when the milk came in, there weren't enough babies in the hospital
that's so
for
good.
all the milk.
Yay!
But I really feel for you, because that feeling of like, you've just gotten started and already you can't do the one thing is how I was feeling at the time. And now with time and distance, I think, oh my God, but beautiful. You carried her.
Yeah.
Your whole pregnancy, and you birthed her and you held her and you loved her. And okay, that might not have worked. And look at you now. Like, so if you're a new mom or you're about to be a mom, then you're listening to this. If you can give yourself the permission to just trust that your little one and you are okay, even if it means something that you have planned and dreamt about, no matter what that might be, not happening. You are enough, and little one is fine. Really.
Yeah. I mean, as you can tell, I'm still healing over that process and that experience. I mean, we have such high expectations of ourselves. And it's interesting because I wouldn't judge a mom with a bottle. I probably wouldn't even see the bottle, like I would
see the baby.
Yeah. I mean, whatever, you're feeding your kid. That's awesome. That's it. Yeah. But just for ourselves, we have such a different, we just have different expectations for ourselves. So that was, I had a traumatic birth. And then that was pretty traumatic. And then, and I didn't know any moms. So I had been in a career with really mostly people who were single, not a lot of people with kids. I didn't know moms.
Or newborns.
Yeah. Or newborns. Yeah. I mean, all the things.
Yeah.
So, and I was alone in the city in Philadelphia. And so really sort of two things happened at the same time. I found a group of moms through a play group, and it was amazing. It was around the 4-month mark, and we started meeting weekly. We were all different. We all had sort of different philosophies, but goodness, was it helpful, to have that group of women. just to and we all had babies right around the same age. And so to talk about, what's going on and just be seen and heard, and all, everybody kind of like in the little circle, just being there, none of us sleeping, everybody looking like, who knows what, but being able to share our stories and just exist with each other.
Mm-hmm.
It was really, really helpful for me. So definitely, to anyone listening, I encourage you to find that community, find those people, find that person, but be around other people with children who are the same age so that you can connect on, what is happening.
Mm-hmm.
I think, well, no, I was going to say, especially in those baby years, but it's not true. I think always.
Yeah, definitely always, because we're well into preteens. We are, and that community of moms, you don't meet mom friends for your kids the same way in middle school and high school. Very much, it's okay, Mom, you can drop me off here,
right?
kind of thing, which is amazing and liberating too in so many ways. And finding that cohort of moms who are in a similar situation, or parents, even dads, who are in a similar situation, timing as you, it requires some different skills and different sort of research. But I wanted to just pick up on what you said about the importance of getting together with other people who are in the similar season, a similar phase of parenting as you. I would say to anyone who is hesitating because you're the one who doesn't have your shit together, or you're the one who has a top knot in for the 7th day in a row and the same yoga pants you've been wearing since last Wednesday, everybody else is the same. And for a while, it may be possible for everybody to keep up the facade of I'm so together. But I would say that quite quickly that goes away. So if you have the sense of wobbling of I'm not good enough, or I'm not ready, or I'm not something, find the gentleness for yourself and the curiosity, which is the other thing we were talking about in the sisterhood this week, is like, how would it be if I did this? And then try it and see how it feels. And then if it feels good, try it a little bit more. And if it doesn't feel good, well, then pivot a little bit. And that's true for finding new mom friends. It's true for all the things, like you were talking about that you've been lifting now. And Lizzy had this gorgeous top on and she's taken it off. We can see her shoulders now. And you can see that you're lifting, and it's amazing. And that's where you are right now. And that you got there because you decided to be curious and be like, well, what would it be like if I went to the gym and my family's used to me being away? What would it be like if I try doing this again? Oh, that feels good. Let's do more. Like curiosity and gentleness can get us really far. And it's the opposite of pushing and shoulding and demanding.
And just to go back to an earlier piece of our conversation, being curious also about other people and knowing that whatever they are showing in that moment also isn't them forever. Yes. And so you and in your dirty top knot in your yoga pants isn't you forever before and forever after. And however they're showing up also isn't them forever. It's them right this moment. And so like recognizing that when you meet like a new mom, you're two people who are intersecting at a moment only. That's kind of one thing. And then the other thing that I feel like I use to approach new situations, new communities. So we just moved here 2 years ago, right? New person. How am I going to find friends? How am I going to, find community? And when we moved from Philadelphia out to our house, same thing. One of the approaches I like to take is I pretend that I'm not the new person, but everyone else is the new person.
I love it.
So I kind of shift it for myself. And then I'm not offended, like if a group of moms are not talking to me or reaching out. I just pretend they're all new. And what would I do to the new person?
Yeah.
I would go introduce myself and say, hey, I'm Lizzy, da-da-da, whatever.
I love that.
Tell me, oh, I like this, I like that, or tell me this or whatever. But yeah, I mean, that's been an approach that's been really helpful, because I think when you go in a new situation, you're, either building a new community or meeting new moms or whatever it is, you can feel really intimidated by other people. But if you can approach it as, we're all just as intimidated with each other as everyone else is.
Yes.
And what do you want? You want somebody to smile at you and welcome you.
Yeah.
And that's it. And so if we can do that, if you can do that, it's so much more likely that people are going to do that back to you.
Yes, for sure. Okay, so I want to shift gears and take a big pivot.
Yeah, totally.
We talk about this, and I'm mindful of time.
Yeah.
One of the things that I mentioned in the introduction is that you have this incredibly powerful artistic streak, and I would totally have guessed that you had studied art or somehow learned some of the incredible things that you do through some sort of formal education, but it just seems to flow out of your fingertips. So can you tell us a little bit about your art and about how and why that's been important to you at different phases of your life, and how you're living in it right now in this season?
Yeah, totally. So one of the things I didn't share during my transition into motherhood was I lost my dad when my daughter was around 4 months old, unexpectedly. I mean, he was ill for a long time, but it was an unexpected event. And my dad and so my father was an artist. He was a painter for a long time, and then he was a glass artist. So he did very large scale pieces. He did glass carving. And in fact, my mom was a stay-at-home mom for a long time, and he supported us as a glass artist.
Wow.
Yeah. Which now that I look back, I'm like, that is pretty friggin' cool, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pretty cool. So, so as a kid, I grew up around big art.
Yeah. Lizzy has some really beautiful art behind her. I said that before we started.
Yeah. Like real sculpture, big art. And pieces that my father did or friends of his, or, I mean, if you could see my house right now, every wall is covered. And so art was always very important to us as a family and just my growing up. And I remember, anyway, so, as a kid, in fact, I was like my dad's apprentice very often. And, from a very young age, helping do whatever it is that I could do around his studio. One thing I laugh about is that as a 3-year-old, he used like X-Acto knife, like razor blades. Yeah. And as a 3-year-old, he taught me how, and when he was done with a blade, he would just throw it on the ground of his shop. And so he taught me as a little kid how to find the edge that wasn't sharp and how to pick it up. And so that was one of my jobs as a little kid, was to go around and help clean up. But that's just who my dad was. Like, he was not a rule follower. And so he probably did that just to aggravate people or just to make them nervous. To be like, what? But again, that just sort of goes back to my upbringing of just feeling respected as a human from the beginning, always. And that's, I don't know if you're familiar with REI parenting, resources for infant educators, and Janet Lansbury. But just this idea that even a newborn is, a human worthy of respect and communication. Mm-hmm. And so, when you're changing your baby, when you're saying, I'm going to pick you up now. Oh, here, look, this is your diaper. And yes, a 2-week-old, a 2-month-old, but engaging, if you think about it, like even thinking like consent, how early that begins. Yeah. That begins, when little humans are born. Yeah. So I don't know how I got off there. I tend to like spin off and web. Twin. Yeah. So art. Yes. Okay, so one of the things that I've always been like a maker, and a journaler. So I have somewhere around 200 journals from that I've been writing and drawing and playing in my whole life. So journaling has been a really huge part of my creative process, and it continues to be. And my self-care, reflect, like all the things. I don't know what I would do without paper and pens.
Yes.
They are central to me being alive and healthy. But so, and I always did sort of this lettering stuff. I didn't know what it was called because I've been doing it for 30 years. I didn't know what, and I think probably at some point it didn't really have a name, hand lettering.
Yeah.
And for me, I always saw like graffiti and calligraphy were like the two options. And what I did like didn't really fit either of those.
Yeah.
So I just kind of thought it was this like Lizzy's quirkiness. And I, in fact, for a long time, I was really embarrassed to even share because it wasn't good enough. And it just didn't, like, it was good enough for me, but it wasn't good enough to actually like share with other people. And actually, right after I lost my father, probably like within a year after, I decided, you know what? This is ridiculous. Like, who cares if nobody likes it? I like it. And I am going to start sharing it. And so it was about, it was 4 years ago that I started an Instagram account and just started sharing my lettering. And so I shared one post on Facebook and people started commenting, "Oh, can I buy that? Oh, can I buy that?" And I was like, "What do you mean buy it?" It's like,
I'm just showing you.
Yeah. Like, and I didn't understand at that time, like how to take a piece of art, turn it into a thing that was on the computer that could be sent to a printer. I've never touched Photoshop before. I never anything about anything. I was in higher ed. I didn't know websites or,
It's not the place where the greatest cutting edge technology lives.
No, it's not. It's not. So yeah, that was a whole other journey, finding a mentor who could teach me how to use Photoshop, how to get my work printed so that people could buy it. So really that was all almost like an accidental hand lettering studio because I didn't really intend on it turning into something. And then it did, which is pretty cool.
It is awesome. And
It's
I would
pretty
love
cool,
to
yeah.
see that. So we'll make sure that I get all of them
sure.
from you.
Yeah.
And I'll put those in the show notes.
Yeah.
Because your lettering is exquisite. And one of the things that I love about it is that you need to slow down and take the time to actually see what it says. Beautiful as a collection of swooping lines. It is beautiful. And the colors that you use and how you play with that and the shapes that you make. But I also really, really want to read what it says. And it demands of me that I stop the scroll and that I really engage and that I read what it says.
I love that you get that. Because I do get comments, like, most people are like, "Oh, I would know your lettering anywhere." But I do get comments, but it's so hard to read. And it's like, yes, because, well, first of all, I love to play with shapes, and like size and do unexpected sizing and unexpected combinations of letters. Like, I love that. That's part of my style. But also, yeah, it makes you stop. Like, you can't really just glance and read it. You need to be, oh, okay, what does this say? And it, the words I write are all tied to stories about ourselves, about our cultural narrative, about messages that I think are reflective of my life, reflective of the lives of the people around me, messages that I want to share, messages that I need to hear, so they're all, they all have, meaning. So I'm an ENFP in Myers-Briggs. Everything has meaning, absolutely everything. And, so every piece I make is, but I appreciate that you see that about my lettering. Thank you.
I definitely do. And it's, as I said, it's something that I appreciate because as a voracious consumer of words and images. I love, 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 love beautiful pictures. And I have an amazing camera that I bought right after my second daughter was born. And I was like, I'm going to learn how to use this, and I'm going to, take amazing pictures of my kids. And it's one of those things that I'm forgiving myself for not actually.
I did the same. It's all good.
Oh my God, so many people, right? And now I'm like, maybe that new iPhone is going to be the answer.
Yeah, but how cool! My new iPhone is has a better camera than that one.
I know, right? And it's so much lighter. It's great.
Yes.
My husband just got a new one, and not that this isn't iPhone doesn't Apple doesn't sponsor us, sadly. But if you'd like to, they're welcome to. It would help this podcaster a lot. But my husband has one of the new iPhones, and it has this portrait mode on it. And oh my God, the pictures that you can take with that little hunk of plastic are incredible.
Amazing. And that's helpful too, to like the social media piece.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I feel like you said earlier something about like, just my life and how it comes across and all of that. But I share the emotional messiness, but I don't always share the visual messiness.
Yeah.
Or
the specificity. Like there have been times where I've reached out to you and said, hey, are you okay? Because I'm picking up something, which is sometimes me projecting on you, totally. And sometimes me just picking up on a general feeling. And I think that there is that line, isn't there, for those of us who flirt with visibility. Because I, like you, before we started, you said that, you have moments where you find it really hard to be visible. And I will go out and be on Instagram every single day and doing stories and doing stuff. And then I literally retreat, and it's not planned. And right now is a retreat time for 3 weeks where I'm like, I really got to get back out there. But this season.
You need it.
No.
Yeah. No. You need to honor that when you need to pull back.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But always know too, though, that in my stories, in my pieces, that often I'm also reflecting the people around me. So it may not even be me that is in a place of struggle. It may be somebody that I heard from, or, one of my followers that reached out and told me a story. And I don't always I don't typically tag people when I've made a piece for them.
Yeah.
I just sort of make it and really hope that they see it, or maybe somebody else needed to see it. And I typically get so many messages like, oh my God, this came at exactly the right time.
Yeah.
So that's helpful.
I love that.
To sort of have that intuition piece. Yeah.
Okay. So
go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh yeah. So we do have to wrap it up in a second, but no, the other piece I just wanted to say was the other part of my business is these retreats. And so you and I had talked about that a bit, or you had talked about how you wanted, you do that and you want to. And I just sort of wanted to say, one of the reasons that I started doing that was because when I had my first baby, within that first year, I planned this massive parenting conference.
As you do.
Great. Yeah. It was great. It was great. We had a keynote and we had a vendor hall with 50 vendors. We had 40 something sessions, a few hundred people. It was amazing. I had over 100 sponsors. It was super cool. Okay. Not to toot my own horn or anything.
Toot, lady, toot.
But it was really cool. But I finished and I was like, oh goodness. This is big, and I have to sell my soul basically, to do these big things. And that's not what I'm interested in. I want to have conversations.
Yes.
I want women to have conversations with each other, and I want to have conversations with them, and I want them to have conversations with themselves. And so I was like, I need to move to a retreat model. However, I'm really passionate that we do not need to go anywhere to retreat. In fact, that women and moms who are caretakers need one-day opportunities that are nurturing and connective. And so that's really a big passion area for me is offering those kinds of experiences to women in my communities, but also helping other people who want to do that same thing have really accessible retreat experiences for women and moms who need it.
Yes.
And still need to go home at the end of the day.
Yes, exactly. That's why the Mama's mini breaks that I offer are from 10 until 2, you drop them off at nursery or school or whatever.
So good.
Pick up the dry cleaning and, just write down your laundry list or throw that little laundry in, whatever. Then you come to me and then we spend those 4 hours and you eat something.
Yes, I love that.
With other women. And then at 2 or 2:30, you get back into your life. You pick up whatever the groceries are you need for dinner. You pick up your kids at nursery and school. You go home. Nobody needs to know you were even gone. You don't have to arrange all the sitters and all the things if your kids are in care with somebody else. Or you swap with a friend or a neighbor for like 5 hours and you're in. Like, it's so good. And it's so important for us to take that time, which leads beautifully into my final question. We can hours and hours, and I don't want to start talking to you because
I know, me neither. I know, but I have to go pick up my kids.
You have to pick up your kids. So tell us where you get your Mama Fuel.
Ooh, where do I get my Mama Fuel? From my children's eyes and hearts. They just light me up. They are like such delicious. I mean, they are tough sometimes, but they're just so intuitive and so brilliant and so creative. And in some ways it's like, I don't want to let them down. But so like my mama, my giving to them fuel in a lot of ways comes from the relationship with them. But my Mama Fuel in general, which is like the mama that I am with other women or with my, in my life, I get it from my connections with other women. So like tonight I'm going out, on a mama date with a bunch of women. I get it from conversations with my husband about, parenting. I get it from finally moving my body in intentional ways, and that self-care that I hadn't been able to give myself, or really didn't make the time for, because I had other priorities. I get it from lettering, which is compulsive for me. I would do it if anybody saw it or didn't see it. I have to journal. I have to letter. So whether there was social media or not, I'd be doing it.
I love it. And I'm so glad that you do, because it's so, so beautiful.
Thank you. I appreciate that so much. Yeah. I mean, those are some of the ways. I need to start meditating, but haven't gotten there yet. Working on it.
Yes, that's one that ebbs and flows in my life too. And my life is definitely better when it's flowing, it's ebbing.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it is time for you to flow towards your babies. And Lizzy, thank you so much for your willingness to share our very first online conversation post meeting last summer with the Mama Fuel audience. I am so, so grateful to have crossed paths with you and that we were able to record this conversation.
Thank you so much. I just want to encourage anybody listening to feel free to reach out to me via my website or Instagram or however, because I love connecting.
So good. And we'll put all of the ways to connect with you on the show notes. So anybody who wants to reach out to you, and I will also link through to you on Instagram when this episode.
Thank you. And thank you so much for the work that you're doing for women and moms. It's beautiful and admirable, and you inspire me.
Thank you.
So thank you.
Thank you very much. Speak soon.
Okay. Bye.
Do you see why I keep talking about this conversation? Lizzy has so much wisdom and such a big heart, and I really hope that you will go to her website, which I will provide the link to in the show notes, and that you will also visit her Instagram, Lizzy Russinko, and find her incredibly beautiful and heart-stirring, soul-stirring art. She truly is an exquisite artist, and the messages that she hand letters just pierce straight into the heart of me and so many other people who love them as well. So hopefully you can go and support her there. And also you can support yourself by joining me for an urban retreat for mamas just like you in the Zurich area on the 9th and 10th of November. You don't have to come to both. You can come to both, but you can also just come to one. And on the 23rd of November here in Geneva, go to mamafuel.me/urban retreats. I am getting signups, which is great. And I would love to have you join us. So come on down, make some time for yourself and come and create beautiful community with other mamas near where you live. See you soon. That's it for this episode of MamaFuel, the podcast. Thanks for listening. There's a lot more conversation, sharing, and real mama talk happening in our private Facebook group. To join the virtual village, go to www.mamafuel.me/Facebook. That's MAMAFUEL.me/Facebook. And be sure to say hi when you get there. If you like this episode, or if you know a mama who could use a little mama fuel, and let's face it, we all have times when we're running on fumes, I'd love you to share this episode and to rate it and leave a review. The algorithms work that way. The more reviews there are and the more sharing there is, the more mamas will be able to feel encouraged and supported with the conversations that you just listened to in MamaFuel. Every comment helps, and it's always a super delight to hear from you. Thanks, and bye for now.